Welcome to episode 358, Jim Chanos, the most famous short seller in the world. This is an outline of episode 358. There are 3 reasons why we study Jim Chanos. First, he's the most famous short seller in the world. Second, he's a dropout self-made billionaire, meaning he lost his status as a billionaire. Third, his most famous short was Enron. His most famous wrong, shorting China. Let us meet Jim Chanos. He was shorting for-profit education.
You've got the education department delay publishing a rule imposing limits on these guys. You're shorting them. How come? Because you're banking on what?
Well, we've been short them for a number of years because we just think this is a flawed business. And on top of that, we think it's a real abuse of the federal taxpayers' largesse. That is, these companies basically derive, in many cases, 80 to 90% of the revenues from loans guaranteed by us, the taxpayer. Right. And the education department has finally gotten wise to what short sellers have been saying for a while, was that kids are coming out of these programs with degrees. They're really not much more employable than they would be, and they're incurring tens of thousands of dollars of debt. Why don't you lend them the money? Why do we have to guarantee the debt? If this is such a good business, why don't you extend the credit as a company, if you believe in the free market, and lend the money yourselves to these students?
Right.
Because when they do without guarantees, typically they reserve 50 cents on the dollar at the beginning. And that tells you that these loans are money bad almost from the minute they go out the door.
Jim Chanos was born to immigrant Greek parents in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in 1957. His parents operated a chain of dry cleaning shops. In 1980, he earned Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Political Science from Yale University. He was 23. Jim Chanos became a short seller by accident. He stumbled into a company called Baldwin Piano, which was a 100-year-old piano distributor and manufacturer. Through financial fraud, Baldwin United came to owe more than $1 billion of mortgage debt in the name of insurance.
I got into it by accident. The first idea I looked at as a young analyst back in the early 80s turned out to be a gigantic fraud. And I had no predisposition to be looking on the short side fundamentally for ideas until after that all unraveled. It was a company called Baldwin United, the old Baldwin Piano Company out of Cincinnati, Ohio, that morphed into a giant financial services company that was playing major accounting games. And after that company collapsed, it was the largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history up until that time in 1982.
In 1985, he was fired as a short-selling analyst, but his clients gave him $16 million to start his short-selling firm. He named his firm Kynikos, Kynikos meaning cynics in Greek. Shorting Enron is his most famous trade.
I mean, I've always said Enron, and this is going to sound a little odd, Enron is one of our easiest shorts ever. I was basically tipped off on Enron. There was a column in the Texas Wall Street Journal. Back in the day, the Wall Street Journal used to have these regional editions. And a friend from Dallas called me up and said, you know, did you see this Heard on the Street column by this guy, John Weil? John Weil, full disclosure, now works for me as an analyst. And he wrote a Heard on the Street about how the energy merchant banks were celebrating because they got a ruling from the SEC that they could use mark-to-model accounting, often erroneously called mark-to-market accounting, mark-to-model accounting to value these esoteric energy derivatives they were trading, of which Enron was the 600-pound gorilla. And one of these.
And so did their auditors sign off on that? No
the auditors signed off on that. It really matters.
No,
Arthur Anderson, actually for them it did matter. They went out of business. And I looked at their filings, and the first thing I noticed was, number one, all the executives were leaving. A huge number of senior executives had begun to depart in 99 and 2000. And that's always one of our greatest red flags. When you see wholesale executive departures at a company, hold on to your wallet. And we'll talk about a company where that's happening later, I think. Well, there was a great back and forth between Malcolm Gladwell and Joe Nocera, two great writers, about whether Enron was a mystery or a puzzle. And in a puzzle, you have enough information to solve it. With a mystery, you may never know. And it's kind of an interesting, and I believe actually Enron was a bit of both. There was enough you could have found to make an investment case to be short, but there was a missing element that we didn't know until October of 2001 when it was disclosed that the buyers had this secret put agreement.
Jim Chanos earned $300 million in 2009 and reached a net worth of $1.5 billion. And then he started to go downhill. He became the China bear. He called China the treadmill to hell, and 100 times worse than Dubai.
The game has to keep going. They're on this treadmill to hell, as I call it, because so much of their GDP growth is construction. 50 to 60% of this country's GDP is construction. We've not seen that in terms of a major country, I think, for a long time, if not at all. And so for them to get off of stopping construction, you'll see GDP growth go negative very quickly. That's not going to happen because in China, it's, as we say, it's all about making the number. People are rewarded at almost every level of government of making their economic growth numbers. The easiest way to do that is put up another building. There's a developer, according to a news report out of China, that's going to put in a new Times Square in suburban Beijing, replete with 32 Broadway theaters. You know, and you're beginning to hear about these bizarre developments in China, indoor ski resorts, similar to what we saw in Dubai. We were remarking on the country being much bigger than Dubai, of course, but keep at it another couple of years and it will be Dubai times 1,000.
Jim Chanos' other famous debacle was shorting Tesla. For years, he tirelessly appears on television, saying Tesla is structurally unprofitable and argues with Elon Musk. Carl Icahn, the second richest hedge fund manager in Wall Street, made this famous comment that Jim Chanos no longer on the Forbes 400 list.
Put that aside for a minute.
Let's talk Chanos.
I think Chanos. Look, I know Chanos for years. I respect him, but I've been on the other side of him many times, and I've made fortunes being against him. I mean, you know, Chanos isn't. I don't say this in any derogatory way, but I don't see Chanos on the Forbes 400 list, you know? So it doesn't, I don't mean that because I got great respect for Chanos.
You don't mean that.
But it doesn't mean that he's always right. That's the point I'm trying to make, okay? And I've been against him on many occasions. Not against him personally, but, you know, on the other side. You know, when you sell short, you're wrong a hell of a lot of times. Now,
well, I mean, Jim Chanos, in fairness, has done pretty damn well for himself, Carl, don't you think?
What have I learned today? Two things. First, Jim Chanos is the only hedge fund exclusively for shorts. In other words, he is one strategy for 36 years. Second, it shows up on his net worth. He reached a peak of $1.5 billion in 2009 and very quickly lost his status as billionaire. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave your questions and comments below. My next video will be Jim Chanos' 8 lessons on shorts. Wishing everyone peace and prosperity.